Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I have something new to share with you, something I have never heard before. And I guess it doesn't surprise me, but I am surprised at how much there is that I never knew about the gospel, just like small prophecies or just all these things that I like investigate and research on this channel. I thought that I knew a lot. I was very serious about reading the scriptures all throughout my life, as well as studying the words of modern day prophets and apostles. And it wasn't until I started this YouTube channel and systematically collecting information and quotes and stuff like that. It wasn't until now that I've realized just how much there is. And it seems like there's evidence that there's just so much more out there. So I don't know how much more there is, but I'm going to try and get it all if I can. It's probably going to be impossible. But okay, so what you're looking at right here, what I'm going to share with you comes from one of these books. My dad worked for the church. He was a software engineer. And while he worked there, I think for Christmas, as like a Christmas present, they would give church employees these leather-bound books. They're really nice. They look really good on a bookshelf. And for example, you have Pathways to Perfection. I think it's just like I think all these are like a compilation of like quotes and discourses and stuff from these different presidents of the church. So Thomas S. Monson, David O. McKay, Spencer W. Kimball, Joseph F. Smith. This blue one up here is Harold B. Lee, and there's a couple others that aren't in this picture. And growing up, I was always very interested in these books. I never took the time to read them. I had other things going on, but I knew that someday I would. And it turns out that day is now, as I'm doing this YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm going to share with you what I found. This one, the one I'm going to share with you comes from this one. This is The Teachings of Lorenzo Snow. Okay. Again, something that I've never heard before. Before we jump into that, let me just give you a quick, it's not really an update, but let's take a look at the Flood the Earth Challenge. It's been a couple days since I've updated it. I'll do it soon. We're at 8,955 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. We're trying to get to 10,000, and the channel goal is to share at least 10 copies, each of us individually. Try and do that. If you do, well, it's gonna make me have to work quite a bit to update all that. If like everybody suddenly did that, I would appreciate it though if you did. This does change lives. As you can see, I'm starting to track endowments because there's at least one report of somebody that's gone to the temple after being baptized as a result of this challenge. The Book of Mormon does change lives, so please share it once you do. If you want to participate in my challenge, just let me know in the comments or send me an email, and make sure to include #flood up here at the top left to help me find your email or your comment. Okay, so back here, The Teachings of Lorenzo Snow. Okay, I took pictures because I want to show you. I want to take you right to the source where I found this. I suppose I could probably look up the Millennial Start article, but I just want to show you this book. Okay, the Earth will be translated. Okay, that's not new. We know that. When the Millennium comes, everyone's going to be translated, quickened. By the way, really quick, there is some controversy about these terms, like caught up, changed, quickened, taken up, transfiguration, translation. And there's always, it seems to be a lot of confusion out there about this. I've come to the conclusion, based on what I've studied, that they're all the same thing. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But what I'm going to do, just to try and settle this once and for all, is I'm going to collect every single scripture and quote that I can find that uses these terms. This is a new spreadsheet called Quotes, Quicken, Transfiguration, Translation. And as far as I can tell, they're used interchangeably. I don't think that there's a difference personally, but I'm going to look into this in depth, and I'll do future videos about it. So anyway, back to this. So the Earth, as well as everybody else that moves into the Millennium, are going to be changed. Okay? We're all going to return to that paradisiacal state that Adam and Eve found themselves in before the fall. Our bodies and the earth, we're going to be in a terrestrial condition, not a glory, terrestrial condition. We're going to leave this telestial condition and go into a terrestrial condition, a paradisiacal state. Okay, so here's the quote. The whole earth is the Lord's. The time will come when it will be translated and be filled with the Spirit and power of God. The atmosphere around it will be the Spirit of the Almighty. Okay, you got that? The atmosphere around it will be the Spirit of the Almighty. Now, just so that there's no doubt and so that it's not ambiguous, let's continue. We will breathe that Spirit instead of the atmosphere that we now breathe. Wowee. Okay, so we already knew, whether you've watched my channel or not, you should know that the earth and our bodies are going to go in the bodies of like all animals, everything, where all of it is going to go through a radical change from the type of existence that we're in right now. It's going to be radical. I think some of our like ways of life will continue. Like some things are going to continue like normal, such as missionary work. Everyone is still going to be permitted to have their own beliefs. And we have the words of prophets that say that there will be all these different beliefs in the millennium. So missionary work is going to continue. There's probably a lot of things that we would recognize from this world that's going to be normal. But there's other things that are just going to be absolutely mind-boggling. And this is one of those things. The atmosphere of the earth is going to become the Spirit of the Almighty. Okay, so I'm not laughing at that. I believe him. You know why? Because Lorenzo Snow was a prophet of God. And he may be the only one that has said this, but there have been other things said that seem to go along with this. And we're going to do a quick review of some of these changes that are going to take place with the earth and us, such as our blood. We're not going to have blood anymore. We're going to have spirit, and things like that. Okay, so really quick, before we do the review, I wanted to just kind of like think about the implications of having a spirit atmosphere instead of like a nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide atmosphere. I don't know that he's saying that will go. I don't know if it'll be like superimposed or if it'll just be a completely new atmosphere or what a spirit atmosphere is like. So I think we'll just have to wait and see what that actually entails. But I wanted to show you this. Okay, this is from Northrop Grumman for some reason. They have this called Now. Anyway, there's an article called What Causes a Pink Sunset and Where Can You See One? Sunsets are caused by scattered light waves breaking up sunlight in the atmosphere. Okay? So our atmosphere, if you don't know, I'm sure most of you do, so I'm not trying to like talk down to you, but our atmosphere is composed of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.9% argon, excuse me, and 0.04% carbon dioxide, and then other trace gases, right? That's what we breathe. Okay, so think about, you have to think that maybe if you change anything with the atmosphere, it may have an impact on things like sunsets, or just maybe even the color of the sky. All right, continuing. Light from the sun, though white in appearance, is actually made up of all colors of the spectrum, from red, which has a longer wavelength, to shorter wavelength colors like blue and violet. During the day, particles in the Earth's atmosphere, such as water vapor, dust, and ash, of which we have to question, is there going to be any of that in a spirit atmosphere? I don't know. For example, mostly reflect back short wavelength blue light from the sun's spectrum. As Vox notes, this is what causes the blue color of sky during the day. Molecules of nitrogen and oxygen in the air reflect the shorter wavelength blue in violet light more than any other color to form the familiar blue dome. So it's kind of a weird paragraph there, but it's basically saying both of those things: water vapor, dust, ash, as well as nitrogen and oxygen. All those combined make for a blue sky. Okay, continuing. However, at the end of the day, the angle of the sun relative to the horizon forces its light to pass through a greater distance of atmosphere. Right? And so that means it's going through more of this stuff that makes up our atmosphere. There's more of it. So again, if it's spirit, I don't know. I don't know how light interacts with a spirit atmosphere. Through a greater distance of atmosphere than it does when the sun is overhead, due to a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering. This means that primarily red, yellow, and orange light, which all have longer wavelengths, will get through to light up any clouds. Okay. There's a little bit more. This is from Forbes. Ask Ethan, why doesn't Earth's atmosphere turn sunlight into rainbows? Okay, that's a good question, because you'd think, okay, well, there's, this kind of like separating of color, right? We get blue during the day. So why aren't we seeing, a rainbow sky? So that's the question. Okay, when light, not just sunlight, but light of any type passes through a medium, its speed changes. The speed of light may be a universal constant, but that's only true if it's moving through a vacuum. If you instead pass light through a medium, which is anything made of particles, including air, right? So you think atmosphere and a spirit atmosphere, including air, water, glass, acrylic, quartz, etc., light travels at a slower speed. Because of conservation laws, that light is required to bend at an angle when it enters the medium at an angle. But light also comes in different colors. Because of individual photons, the quanta of light have different energies from one another. When light goes from vacuum to a medium, the different wavelengths respond slightly differently. Violet light bends more severely and moves more slowly in a medium. Redder light bends less severely and moves less slowly than the violet light. This process is known as refraction. Okay, so you have this. Here's like a visual representation of that. It's all together at first in this like beam of light, this ray of light, but then it hits a medium, and then it's like those like in the army, you have these formation runs. Well, sometimes for PT, for physical training, they break up like the fat kids from the kids that kind of run normal to those that are really fast, and so. Otherwise, like when you have them all together, it's kind of a big debacle. It happens, but you always have people falling out. This is like a formation run where, you have the fat kids that aren't keeping up on their weight and all that stuff. They kind of like fall out of formation, whereas the ones that are faster, they keep going on. All right. And by the way, at the beginning of the army, I was able to keep up with the fast kids, but it wasn't like that for too long. Okay, so when there are large differences between the speed of light in a vacuum and the speed of light in a medium, the colors separate easily. In water, the speed of light is only 75% of what it is in a vacuum. So pay attention to these numbers. I highlighted them. So water, 75%, which is why water drops can create rainbows so easily. Okay. Compare that to down here. I'll get to it, but Earth's atmosphere is only 99.97%. Like meaning that when light comes into Earth's atmosphere, it's traveling that percent of its original speed in a vacuum. So it doesn't really slow down very much. Whereas water, it's pretty significant. Ice is nearly the same. It's a little bit higher, 76%. Which is why you'll sometimes see irregular rainbows occurring in high altitude clouds, owing to the hexagonal plate crystals which form up there. In a glass or acrylic prism, the speed of light is approximately 66% of what it is in a vacuum, which is why shining sunbeams through them separates them into colors so easily. Put in air, like Earth's atmosphere, the speed of light is still 99.97% of what it is in a vacuum. Okay, so again, I guess the question is, with the spirit atmosphere, how does it interact with light? Maybe kind of a silly question, but it's going to make all the difference in our sunsets, I think, and maybe what the sky looks like. I'm just trying to say that maybe things will look pretty crazy with a spirit atmosphere. I don't know. I found this YouTube channel. This is Space Chip, and he pays for this like program. You can pay for it on Steam. I think it's called Space Engine. I already forgot it. But he shows what sunsets look like on other planets in our solar system. So this is Mercury, for example. And I don't think that this like rainbow color right here is supposed to be from the atmosphere of Mercury, but it's supposed to be like a camera effect, like a virtual camera effect, just like how you have like this flare right here, camera flare. But you can go through here if you want, and it shows you, here's Venus. That's kind of crazy. It looks like all bluish, purplish, So anyway, you can check that out. Oh yeah, I still have this up, Space Engine. So this is not a paid promotion, but I'll put the link for this in the description box below. Okay, and then you have to think about this too. The atmosphere is not just about the color of the sky. The atmosphere affects a lot of things on Earth, a lot, right? So let me just read a few things here. Terrain. Atmosphere has dramatic effects on the surface of rocky bodies. Without an atmosphere, the planet has no protection from meteoroids, and all of them collide with the surface as meteorites and create craters. So that's kind of a big deal. Wind erosion, from the wind. Wind erosion is a significant factor in shaping the terrain of rocky planets with atmospheres, and over time can erase the effects of both craters and volcanoes. So you have to wonder about that. If it's like a thicker atmosphere, will we see more erosion? Is that what's going to cause a lot of things to kind of like level out? Because we're going to get to that about valleys being exalted and mountains made low. I think a lot of that's going to be due to other factors, but this could be like a long-term factor that affects the surface of the Earth. So if we have a thicker atmosphere, maybe that equates to more erosion. Okay, then you have circulation, which is essentially weather. And then it points out these three different type of scientists. From the perspective of a planetary geologist, the atmosphere acts to shape a planetary surface. Okay, so that's a big deal, shaping the surface of the Earth. For a meteorologist, the composition of the Earth's atmosphere is a factor affecting the climate and its variations. So yeah, weather. And it seems like the millennium is going to be a pretty peaceful time in all domains, including weather, I would assume. I don't foresee, tornadoes like the one that just happened near my town here, just down the street. And by the way, say a prayer for the people down, like west of town. Their house was basically destroyed. The roof was ripped off. Say a prayer for them. But anyway, I don't expect to see those kind of things in the millennium. And then it says, for a biologist or paleontologist, the Earth's atmosphere composition is closely dependent on the appearance of life in its evolution. So yeah, it affects life on Earth. So the atmosphere is kind of a big deal. So when you change something as fundamental as the atmosphere, it's going to make for some radical changes, right? Isn't that a logical conclusion? I think it is. Okay, so let's move on from here. I'm just going to show you a few things on my spreadsheet. Let's see. Okay, so this is on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet, row 88 currently, Earth, Millennial. So here's some scriptures. Isaiah 40, verse 4. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. I think there are a couple levels to that, by the way. I definitely think that it's literal. I also think that it has to do with how the world socially, I'm not talking about like political issues. I'm talking about the disparity between rich and poor, which I guess is kind of political. I'm not going down that route though. Like, you understand what I mean? Those that are really proud, those are really humble. There's going to be like this kind of like equalizer type thing when we get to the millennium. Those that are wicked are going to be removed, and they cause a lot of the disparity between different groups and division and things like that. Things are going to be much more equal in the millennium because there's going to be less competition in all domains of life, whether it's material wealth or just some people, it's other things like how smart you are and they make you feel dumb. There's going to be a lot more equality during the millennium. Sorry, I'm not articulating this very well. Isaiah 54:10, for the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. And then there's, a bunch of other scriptures, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Revelation, Doctrine and Covenants, but I'm going to skip those just so that there's no doubt, because a lot of times people like to privately interpret scripture and not listen to how our church interprets it, but we're going to listen to our church. This is George Q. Cannon, first counselor in the first presidency. He says, Millennial, this is in Gospel Truth, Volume 1, pages 89 to 90, Millennial Conditions. Now, how will it be on this earth when Christ reigns? When the millennium dawns, Satan bound, and now look at this, and the elements of the earth at our disposal and under our control. I assume he's using elements in the normal sense, like meaning weather, volcanoes, just the mechanisms of the earth and weather. But he seems to be suggesting here that would be under our control. There will be no hunger, no thirst. Okay, so he's going to say it better than how I was trying to say it. There will be no, so this is, think about valleys being exalted, meaning like the poor, the humble, the meek, and then the proud made low. There will be no hunger, no thirst, no nakedness, no vagrants, no houseless people. All will have that which is necessary to supply their physical wants, but there will be no waste. One man will not be allowed to lord it over another and take possession of more than he needs, but all will have a fullness. Satan will be bound. He will not have power to inflict the misery he has done and is doing. Okay, and we'll stop right there. So this is the only place I think that I've seen where it says that the elements would be under our control and under our disposal. So that's interesting to think about. Okay, Joseph Fielding Smith. This is in Doctrines of Salvation, Volume 2, pages 413 to 415. Prophets foretell changes in Earth's surface. Here are a few references from the scriptures. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. For the mountain shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness... Okay, we'll skip down. We're going to skip down. Latter-day Revelation tells of Earth's restoration. I know it is customary to spiritualize these passages and to place upon them a figurative interpretation. But in our modern script, gotta correct that. When I copy and paste from archive.org, it's almost like it does like a recognition of the characters, and when you paste it doesn't always get it right. So anyway, but in our modern scriptures as well as the Bible, the literal meaning is clearly stated. I will give you a few references from the Doctrine and Covenants. Wherefore be not deceived, but continue in steadfastness. Look forth for the heavens to be shaken. For the heavens to be shaken and the earth to tremble, and to reel to and fro as a drunken man, and for the valleys to be exalted, and for the mountains to be made low, and for the rough places to become smooth. And all this when the angel shall sound his trumpet. He shall utter his voice out of Zion, and he shall speak from Jerusalem, and his voice shall be heard among all people, and it shall be a voice as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, which shall break down the mountains, and the valleys shall not be found. He shall command the great deep, and it shall be driven back into the north countries, and the islands shall become one land. So not just the continents. I've heard that said before. It's like, no, it doesn't include islands. It does. It's all land. And the islands shall become one land, and the land of Jerusalem and the land of Zion shall be turned back into their own place, and the earth shall be like as it was in the days before it was divided. Okay, mighty changes wrought by flood. These scriptural references teach us definitely that the day will come when the mountains will be debased and naturally the valleys will be exalted. This is part of the great restoration. The sea is to be driven back into the north, so it must have been there once before. The land surface of the earth will again be united, and the islands brought back to the mainland as it was in the beginning. Now, why bring back the condition which was in the beginning? Because in the beginning, the Lord pronounced the earth good, right? So that is what was good, that original condition. All right, continuing. Then, after the fall, a curse was placed upon it, and many changes came. In this time of restoration, all things are to be brought back to their primitive condition. See the 10th article of faith. From the knowledge which has come to us through revelation, we learn that the mountains in the days of the flood were not the great and mighty peaks that we see today. So, this is good to know because there has been some concern about not having mountains. It seems like there still will be some kind of mountains, but just maybe not like Mount Everest, and I don't know about the Wasatch Front or anything like that. But anyway, we learned that the mountains in the days of the flood were not the great and mighty peaks that we see today. This makes a wonderful difference in the distribution of water over the face of the earth. We do not know what the earth did by way of change during the flood. Evidently, there were great changes coming from the surface being covered by water so suddenly. Okay. Next, Bruce R. McConkie. This is Doctrinal New Testament Commentary, Volume 3, page 543. 3 natural changes in the earth, all apparently growing out of one transcendent happening, are here named. See Revelation 16, 17 through 21, as attending our Lord's second coming. They are: 1, earth's land masses shall unite, islands and continents shall become one land. 2, every valley shall be exalted and every mountain shall be made low. The rugged terrain of today shall level out into a millennial garden. Number 3, such an earthquake as has never been known since man's foot was planted on this planet shall attend these changes in the earth's surface and appearance. And fourthly, as recorded, and by the way, I caught, this is how it was written, so I don't know why it went 1, 2, 3, and then anyway. And fourthly, as recorded elsewhere, the great deep, presumably the Atlantic Ocean, shall return to its place in the north, and the earth shall be like as it was in the days before it was divided. Okay, that's all that I want to read from this row, Earth Millennial. So we'll move on to this one. Currently, row 41, blood. This is Bruce R. McConkie. Okay. Some mortals have been translated. In this state, they are not subject to sorrow or to disease or to death. No longer does blood, the life-giving element of our present mortality, flow in their veins. Procreation ceases. If they then had children, their offspring would be denied a mortal probation, which all worthy spirits must receive in due course. They have power to move and live in both the mortal and, and unseen sphere. All translated beings undergo another change in their bodies when they gain full immortality. This change is the equivalent of a resurrection. And by the way, it makes sense, right? You have the 3 Nephites. They had their families, their children. It doesn't make sense that like as they continue with this special mission, living in a translated state until the second coming, that they would continue getting married and having more children. That doesn't. So I think that that's a big part of it, why the procreation ceases. Okay, but continuing, all mortals after death are also resurrected. In the resurrected state, they are immortal and eternal in nature. And those among them who are privileged to live in the family unit have spirit children. Millennial man will live in a state akin to translation. His body will be changed so that it is no longer subject to disease or death as we know it. Although he will be changed in the twinkling of an eye to full immortality or resurrection when he is 100 years of age. He will, however, have children, and mortal life of a millennial kind will continue. We shall speak more particularly of all this shortly. So that's pretty incredible. That's another big change. So we've talked about the earth in what we know so far that's going to happen to the earth. Now we're talking about mankind and our bodies. There's not going to be disease or death as we know it right now, right? During the millennium, there will, of course, be two kinds of people on earth. There will be those who are mortal and those who are immortal. There will be those who have been changed or quickened or transfigured or translated. Words fail to describe their state. And this is like, I think, a key phrase where he's basically saying that these are all the same thing. You know, because he's saying there's two people. There's going to be those that have already passed on. They're done with mortality. Now they're resurrected. But then there's going to be everybody else that's still on earth. And call them whatever you want. Changed, quickened, transfigured, translated. Words fail to describe their state. In those who have gone through a second change in the twinkling of an eye so as to become eternal in nature. There will be those who are on probation, for whom earth life is a probationary estate, and who are thus working out their own salvation, and those who have already overcome the world and have entered into a fullness of eternal joy. There will be those who will yet die in the sense of being changed from their quickened state to a state of immortality, and those who, having previously died, are then living in a resurrected state. Okay, and we'll move on from that because that's pretty much all when we're talking about like mortals during the millennium. But I do have a couple other things here. I have this one from President Nelson at the time he was in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This is from the October 1993 ensign called Constancy Amid Change. And he says this: that leads us to the fall of Adam. To bring the plan of happiness to fruition, God issued to Adam and Eve the first commandment ever given to mankind. It was a commandment to beget children. A law was explained to them. Should they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, their bodies would change. Mortality and eventual death would come upon them. But partaking of that fruit was prerequisite to their parenthood. While I do not fully understand all the biochemistry involved, I do know that their physical bodies did change. Blood began to circulate in their bodies. Okay, now that's important to understand because this is the same state that we're going back to in the millennium. Everything's being restored to how it was before the fall. And so we will be able to have children, but we're not going to have blood in our bodies, which makes me pretty happy. Okay, along those same lines, there's this. This is a row called Vegetarians, Millennium. And I have a few different quotes. I'm just going to read this one from Bruce R. McConkie, but we have this also from Orson Pratt, as well as Parley P. Pratt. They were both members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, but we'll just read it from Bruce R. McConkie. Isaiah gives us these poetically phrased particulars about animal life during the millennium. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, he says, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock. Implicit in this pronouncement is the fact that man in all forms of life will be vegetarians in the coming day. The eating of meat will cease because, for one thing, death as we know it ceases. There will be no shedding of blood because man and beast are changed, or in parentheses, quickened, and blood no longer flows in their veins. No, I guess let's just read it really quick. Let's read these really quick. I'll just read the red parts. So, indeed, everything that grew was just calculated for the food of man, beast, fowl, and creeping thing, and their food was all vegetable. Flesh and blood were never sacrificed to glut their souls or to gratify their appetites. So this is talking about, in the Garden of Eden. Thus, having cleansed the earth and glorified it with the knowledge of God, as the waters cover the sea, and having poured out his Spirit upon all flesh, both man and beast become perfectly harmless, as they were in the beginning, and feeding on vegetable food only. While nothing is left to hurt or destroy in all the vast creation. The prophets then proceed to give us many glorious descriptions of the enjoyments of its inhabitant. There's this from Orson Pratt. It is then that the enmity of the beasts of the field, as well as that of all flesh, will cease. No more one beast of prey devouring and feasting upon another that is more harmless in its nature. No more will this enmity be found in the fish of the sea or the birds of the air. Skipping down. And Adam and Eve ate fruits and vegetables, not animal flesh. The whole earth will be restored, and man will be restored. And not only upon man, but upon all flesh, the Spirit of God will be poured out, and they will eventually be restored to all that was lost by the fall of our first parents. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, and that's it. So, like I said, I'm going to continue to work on this thing, with the different words in terms: caught up, changed, quickened, taken up, transfiguration, translation. If you have any good quotes or anything, send them my way and I'll compile this. But anyway, needless to say, there's big changes coming. And I'm glad that I found this little gem. I don't know if anybody else has said this other than Lorenzo Snow, but I think that we can take it on good authority because he was a prophet. And I'll be interested to see what a spirit atmosphere is like. I'll bet it's incredible. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.